there are homeowners out there that need your help. And if it's not you calling or setting those appointments, someone else is, and they're getting the paychecks anyway. So why miss out on those opportunities?
Hey everyone, I'm Burton and welcome to PropStream Pros, the podcast where we dive into the lives of real estate professionals who've made it. In each episode, we'll explore how they got started, challenges they faced, and the strategies that helped them succeed, so that you can learn from their journey and apply those insights to your own path. Whether you're just getting started or already building a portfolio, there's something here for everyone. So make sure to subscribe, follow, and join us as we talk to professionals who've made their own success.
On this episode of PropStream Pros, Burton sits down with Loida Velasquez, a real estate professional who turned cold calls, expired listings, and disciplined outreach into long-term success. She breaks down the mindset, communication skills, and daily habits that create momentum.
Today on PropStream Pros, we're breaking down the real estate strategy most agents avoid, but top producers use every day: consistent prospecting. I'm Burton, and this show brings you real-world experience and insights from real estate experts so you can pave your path to financial freedom. Right now, many agents are chasing social media, automation, and paid leads while ignoring the fundamentals, having real conversations with motivated sellers. And in a market where roughly 71% of agents didn't close a single deal last year, discipline and consistency matter more than ever. Our guest today, Loida Velasquez, known as the Wonder Woman of real estate, built her career through rejection, cold calls, expired listings, and FSBOs. And with over 11 years of experience in major markets like California and Florida, she's proof that courage, follow-up, and consistency create momentum. Loida, welcome to the show. As I was looking at your bio, Loida, it says here you've been at this for 11 plus years. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy to think that it's already been 11 years. A lot has happened since I got started, a lot of learning, a lot of rejection, but here we are.
Yes, 11 years is a long time, and I think this is perfect for our audience. We can learn a lot from you over that span of time. So let's do this. Let's start before real estate, if you don't mind. Like, walk us through how it all started for you. Like, how did you go from what you were doing before real estate into real estate?
Yeah, so I got into real estate in 2015. Prior to that, I worked in marketing and advertising for about 8 years, and I love what I was doing. I have always been interested in all things marketing for companies, but it got to a point that I felt like I was being overworked and underpaid. And also at one of the last companies I was working at, I was traveling pretty much 100% of the time. So I was never really home, living out of a suitcase. And in my 20s, I love that. But I'm like, you know what? I don't see myself doing this forever. And I eventually do want to get something that's stable so I could be at home, see my friends and family, and never miss out on any special occasions. And so it was towards the end of 2014 that I really started to look into a career change. One of the agencies that I was last working at, they were going through a lot of changes. And that's when I kind of decided, you know what, let me go into real estate. I knew some people that were in the business and they were successful. And I reached out and I said, hey, I'm thinking about getting into real estate. What are your thoughts? And immediately they said, you know what, this is not for everyone. It's not glamorous. It's not what you see on TV. Try it. You can shadow and see if this is something for you. And yeah, I went directly into getting my license and I said, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it happen. And that's exactly how I transitioned into real estate. I decided to go after listings, which is what you mentioned, the expireds and for sale by owners, which are probably the toughest lead sources that a lot of people are a little afraid to go after.
Yes,
just
they are.
Of the rejection and the objections. But yeah, that's kind of how I started and how I build my business from there.
I love this. So there's a lot to unpack, and I want to ask you a few things about that journey. First, let's talk about the feeling of being overworked and underpaid. In that moment, what were some things that you started to notice happening to you? Like, were you stressing out more? Were you seeing yourself not get enough sleep? Were you like, what were just some things that you noticed? Okay, this isn't good and I'm not happy and therefore I need to look elsewhere? Like, do you recall some of the moments, or maybe a specific moment, and where it
Yeah.
just boiled over?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I loved what I was doing. However, where I was at, it was very negative environments, where it was more the people that I was working with and the stress and the pressure. And the way that it affected me is that I would go home with a very negative attitude, kind of upset. It's like I wouldn't want to talk to anyone, and it's just like feeling
Hmm.
irritated. And that is me personally. That's not how I am in general. So for me, it was very tough to be able
Okay.
to, it's like I'm bringing in all that the negativity from work to home, and I have to complain about it and tell someone what I'm going through, and they don't understand. And that's when I said, you know what? This is where I'm feeling like I'm being overworked because of all of that is being demanded from me, and what I'm getting compensated. For me, the numbers weren't adding up. And I said, you know what, there has to be something better where maybe I can work for myself and I will get compensated based on the amount of work that I put in, which would be fair for me. And that's kind of when I decided to make that change.
I love that answer, because that's a reality I think a lot of people will eventually go through, or maybe are going through it right now. Hopefully you don't, but that's a reality I think a lot of people will be faced with. And what's important here is understanding that I'm not getting paid. I mean, maybe you were getting paid a pretty good amount, but what you noticed was that you're taking it home with you, and that's something that it's very valuable. Your personal time is very valuable, and so for work to come home with you, on in this case, on in an emotional baggage kind of way,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely not being compensated for that. So I don't blame you for doing that. One other thing you mentioned in your history here was that you were speaking to someone who told you, "Hey, this isn't for everyone." And here we are today, 11 years later, right? So there's something about you that in a moment of being faced with the challenge, you, instead of running away, you walk towards it. At least that's what I kind of read in between the lines there. Were you always like that, or was the feeling of being underpaid and overworked, was it just such a strong feeling that when you were told, hey, this isn't for everyone, you're like, I'm doing it regardless? Was
Yeah.
that from that moment, or have you always been this way?
I think it's a combination of both. So growing up, I played a lot of sports, and I've always been pretty competitive. Where if someone says, "Hey, not a lot of people are really good at this," I almost take it as a challenge, and I say, "Well, you know what? Let me show you that I can actually be very good at this." So that is kind of how I took upon, being told, real estate is not for everyone. And at the same time, I
Mm-hmm.
had seen the success that the people I knew had being in the business, being newer. So I said, you know what? All I have to do is really replicate what the top producers have done in the past. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if I do what I'm supposed to, there's already like a manual of instructions of this is what it takes to get to the top. If I just do that, there's no reason why I'm going to fail. Like I'm going to have success. And like I said, being competitive and playing sports growing up, for me, it was like, you know what? This is a challenge. I have to be very disciplined and committed, and we're going to make this happen. And that's kind of how I took things.
I love that. What would you say is a huge benefit of having someone, in this case, kind of like a mentor, helping you along the way at the start of your journey? Because there are a lot of people, whether they don't have the network, or maybe they're just, I would say I fall into this category, maybe they're just a little too stubborn to seek that help. From your perspective, what would you say are the biggest benefits of actually having someone there to assist you along this journey?
I think it's extremely important to have someone like a mentor because, especially when you're starting out in something that's completely new to you, there will be those times that you doubt yourself. And there will also be people
Mm.
around you, whether it's friends or family, that question why you're doing this Or do you really want to do this? So having that mentor, that person that says, hey, I've already been through this. This is what you're going to encounter from your peers, from your family. But as long as you're doing what I'm telling you, and you're not asking questions in the sense of like questioning whether I should be doing, the prospecting or generating leads, as long as you're supposed to be doing what you have to succeed, you're going to make it. So, having that mentor, that person kind of in my ear that I can check into, or having as like accountability, it will really set up anyone for success.
I love that. I love that. And great answer and great advice given to those that are listening. You talked about expired listings and FSBOs, and you did mention, and I will 100% agree with you, it's one of the most challenging leads that you can go after. And I agree with that. I mean, expired listings, for example, you have a homeowner who is motivated to sell, but they might be fixated on the price that it didn't sell for. So you have just a few natural obstacles, like set price in mind. Maybe they're not too happy with real estate agents because they didn't have that great success the first time around. So it's, Loida, it's like you're already walking into a lion's den with the meat strapped all around you. What is it about expired listings and FSBOs that just resonates with you?
Well, ever since I got into the business, I was always told, if you want to last, you have to list. So listings is the name of the game. And for me, the expireds, they're the lowest hanging fruit. They have already raised their hand that they want to sell. They need to make a move. And many times these homeowners, they do come off the market for one reason or another. And I like to think of myself kind of like a doctor. Like I'm calling an expired, let's say, Burton, you're the expired. I'm trying to figure out what happened, what your motivation was. And I think at the end of the day, what makes me successful when it comes to talking to expireds is that I come across and I come from a standpoint of, you know what, I need to find out, first of all, if I can help you. Because if I can't, I'm okay with letting you know what, just hold on to your property because the price that you want is not where the market is, or whatever that is. And I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make when going after expireds is that you just want to get a sale and you're willing to just kind of, you're beating someone for an appointment, and that's really not the direct approach. So for expireds, yeah, it is like I'm walking into a lion's den, but at the end of the day, I know that this homeowner, they had some type of intention for selling. And it's going to come down to, who is the best agent that can have the best conversation with them and figure out if this person is a serious and motivated seller. And that's when I come in. And if I can determine that, then I'm going to set the appointment, help this homeowner, and they're going to be excited and telling everyone that Loida came in and saved the day.
I love that. I love, first off, the analogy of the doctor, because you're right. Like your main physician isn't your surgeon when you need it. Take that option if you have to go down that route. If you're having some mental challenges, or you just need help with your mental health, your primary physician isn't going to be that specialist. So I love that. I love that you've kind of said, okay, look, I'm a specialist for this, and that's what I'm going to do. And any other lead that doesn't fit in that box, I'm okay to walk away from. And I think that leads to another very important thing that I think a lot of people need to realize. You have to stop chasing that perfect record, because I see it. A lot of people will go after leads that should not be like that wouldn't work out for them, only because they're trying to chase that perfect record. And I love that you're okay with that. Every athlete, again, you grew up with the sports. Every athlete's eventually going to get a loss on their record. So I think what you just said there is very, very powerful. And is there anything else you'd like to add to that? Again, you come from that sports background. It sounds like you've accepted just no's. Like when you hear a no, it sounds like you're comfortable with that. Am I wrong in assuming that?
Yeah, no, at this point, I have made thousands of phone calls and knocked on thousands of doors that I am okay with hearing no. And I'm also okay with turning away business if I know that I can't help a homeowner. So for example, if there's a seller that tells me they want 1 million for their home, but I know it's really worth 500,000 and they're stuck on that 1 million, I'm not going to take that listing because I would be doing a disservice to them. lying to them that I can sell that property when I know it's not worth that. So that's when I'm okay telling, that homeowner, unfortunately, I'm not the right agent for you. That price that you want is not where the market is. And, at this point, you're better off just holding on to your home. And in my experience, being in this business for over 11 years, it's gotten to the point that I have learned that you have to be very direct and a straight shooter with a lot of these expires specifically, and they appreciate that because any agent might come in and say, you know what? Yes, I'll list your home for $1 million. And then they'll ask for price reductions here and there. And then that agent is miserable saying, hey, my seller doesn't want to reduce the price. And I see this happening all the time where I tell agents, well, maybe you shouldn't have taken that listing. So it's little things like that, being okay with turning away business that that you can help the homeowner.
And I think what you just said and how you phrase it was very, very powerful. I like how you gave the example of someone wants it for $1 million, and I know I couldn't list it or sell it for $1 million. Most people would kind of take that scenario and point fingers at the homeowner. But I like how you're not necessarily pointing fingers at yourself, but you're kind of turning it a little bit away from that homeowner. And I think that's smart because I think what you're doing in that moment saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, and unfortunately, I don't think I'm the best agent for you because I would be doing you a disservice since I can't get you that $1 million price point. I think it's very powerful because that right there is essentially you maintaining that bridge for a potential future client. Whereas most people would probably know it's never going to work out that way, or they make false promises and then all of a sudden price reductions are happening, and that can damage one's brand or the brokerage itself, right? Because now it's the homeowners going from, hey, you told me you could, to now you've asked 4 different price reductions. What's going on here? So they've lost confidence in not just you as the representative for their property, but maybe in the entire brand that you're representing as well. So I think what you just said there, very, very, very powerful. And I like that reframing of, hey, unfortunately, I don't think I can do this because I'd be doing you a disservice. That's a very powerful angle there. One of the things I like about PropStream Pros, Loida, is that I'm a firm believer, most of us that are real estate professionals today, whether you're doing data like myself or, being one of the best real estate agents in 2 markets like yourself, or maybe you own multifamily properties or a skyscraper, you do title. What I find interesting about most people I come across is that the things that they've experienced in life, all the wins and losses, the ups and downs, somehow tie into what they're doing today. So full circle moment here, okay? You mentioned sports and you kind of grew up with that. How has growing up with sports helped you as a real estate agent today? Or do you use any of those behaviors that you've adapted in your early years in today's world?
Absolutely. I think, one of the first things that comes to mind is being a team player. In this business, there's so many moving pieces in a transaction where so many people are involved that you need to be able to have good communication with everyone so that if you are under contract, nothing falls through the cracks. Everyone has the expectations of what the end goal is. At the end of the day, whether we're working with a buyer or the seller, they're happy at the end. So, when you're playing sports, you have to all work together. For me specifically, I grew up playing softball. So as a team, it's like, okay, what are the plays that we're doing? What is the other team looking like? Who do we need to watch out for? And then just always being in communication. So that's one of the things. And then I think also just for myself, being a leader and being able to lead others. If I have a team, whether it's agents or my transaction team, being able to delegate tasks in a way that everyone knows what their role is and what the goal is that we need to achieve. So I think those just are the 2 things that come to mind when it comes to what I can apply from sports into this business.
If you could pick one athlete that you say you would like to, that just models what your passion in what you do today, right? Like for me, I love data, and I take the Kobe mindset, that Mamba mindset when it comes to data. Like I will do everything I need to do to be the best at it. Who is that athlete for you, and why?
The one that's very popular right now, I know a lot of people know this, and I'm a big Dodgers fan. You probably know who I'm going to mention, but Shohei Ohtani, like he bats, he pitches, like he's just someone that I think like the work ethic and just how he is in sports and what he brings to the table, it's something that it's very admirable, and what he's able to do just out there in the field. Obviously, you can tell he practices a lot, and he's very dedicated to doing this sport. So that's the athlete that comes to mind.
I could totally see that in you. Just a few weeks back, you did a really cool exclusive training with us, one of our things called Connect to Close. And I believe on day 2, you showcased your ability to cold call some expired and FSBO listings. And I could see why Shohei is your selection here, because another thing I like about Shohei is that he does it under pressure. And we're not talking about like any other. This guy's under international pressure. He has not only American fans watching him, but he has international fans watching him, and he performs at that level and under that pressure. And that's what you reminded me of on that day too. He had over hundreds of people watching and listening to the calls that you were about to make. And I will say this, if you haven't seen or weren't there, go check out that replay. But you delivered in that spotlight under that amount of pressure. So crazy correlation there. I totally see it. And shout outs to the Dodgers. Really great team. Hopefully they get another one under their belt. But that's a good one. That's a really good one. Have you seen him live at all? Like, have you actually seen a game with Shohei?
No, I haven't, but I have my tickets for when they play out here in Florida in September.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about that. So you are in Florida. Has Florida always been your home?
No, so I moved to Florida 4 years ago. But I'm originally from California, and that's where I built most of my business. And I am currently licensed in both states.
Okay, let's pull apart the onion here. You just moved to Florida 4 years ago. You're from California. Let's work backwards here. Why did you move to Florida?
Well, when I moved out here, I was a part of a team and we were expanding. So this was just a natural place that was a good fit for me, for business. I also have a lot of family in Central America. So just traveling out there was much closer than being in California. And another one was taxes. Compared to California, Florida, is a little bit better.
I won't even argue that. Those are some really great reasons, especially the last one. And yeah, that's a great like relocation, because California and Florida have tons of similarities, especially when it comes to weather. The only thing I found interesting when I first visited Florida, I remember this, Loida. I remember going to Miami Beach, and during sunset, it was very weird because it was like perfectly timed. Right during sunset, everyone stood up, turned their beach chairs around, and started facing the sun, which sets away from the beach. Again, here in California, the sun sets on the beach, so we're still looking at the beach, still looking at the sun. But when I saw that, I was like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But I love that you did it for many reasons. One, for a new venture. You headed out there with your business team, and then obviously you're much closer to family. Central America, is that where you're originally from?
Yeah, that's where all my family is. I was born and raised in LA, but I still travel out there every single year, and I am an only child. So all of my cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone is in Central America.
Okay, awesome. So you grew up in California, but your relatives or your history is from Central America. Who do you think? Maybe it's both, but Where do you get your leadership from? Is it mom or dad?
I would say it would probably be mostly from my dad. It's a little combination of both, but I think a lot of it was just seeing my dad and him leading. We've always been very involved in church. He was always leading groups and teaching and training and talking. At the same time, my mom sang, so she was always in front of people too. So I think it's a combination of both of them that had kind of shaped me to how I am now.
No, that makes sense. Your mom was good at presenting and being up on stage and performing in front of strangers. You do that with your YouTube videos and doing your live cold calling. And then that leadership from your father, I could see that because are not only a team leader for your company, but you mentor people and you help them achieve their success, just like you've done for yourself. Just if you don't mind me asking, has there been a moment for both? Has there been a moment where you do something, you're like, man, it just sounded like my mom or my dad? And then do you remember what that moment was?
Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I don't think it's a specific moment, but it's just more how I am. So I get this from my dad. He's very detailed in how he does things and how he reviews things. It's almost kind of like a little bit OCD where if something is it looks crooked, I have to go and fix it. Everything needs to be done right. Versus my mom, she's a little bit more free will. And that's kind of where we're very different. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I also get from my dad, just being more meticulous in everything that I do and just being more calculated. And it's almost like being a little bit analytical, but it has definitely worked in my favor.
If you don't mind me just kind of speculating here, one of the things that I observed, especially from those that come from Central America, is just the togetherness, the closeness of their family, how they're really just for each other. Would you say that your relationship with your parents is very, very, very strong? Is it loose? What's your answer to that, if you don't mind me, probing a little bit and just kind of asking?
Yeah, no, I would say it's a very strong relationship. It has always been. They have always been very supportive of anything that I wanted to do. What's funny is that when I was in my marketing career, right before I transitioned to real estate, one of the things that I did, because I thought this was the only way to climb up the corporate ladder and make six figures, is that I went back to school to get my master's. So I enrolled in an MBA program and I got accepted. And they were really excited about that. Their daughter, Loida, is getting her master's. This is a big accomplishment. So when I decided to fully commit to going into real estate and pursuing it full time, I made the decision that I was going to drop out of the master's program. So I remember going to them and I told them, you know what? Real estate is something that I want to pursue. I already ran the numbers. If I put in the work and do what I'm supposed to do, I'm probably going to make more money versus if I get this degree and go work a corporate job that's a 9 to 5. And initially they were a little bit skeptical and a little bit scared because, being from a household that for us, and I think many people listening can relate, we come from a background where if you have a stable paycheck and a stable career, you're good. So now we're going into uncertainty. I don't know when my next paycheck is coming. So, but yeah, I remember having that conversation with them and they were supportive. They said, you know what, at the end of the day, we know that you are a very smart woman and you know what is best for you. So we're going to support you. And yeah, I ended up dropping out of the MBA program, which I was paying out of pocket for. So I had already paid over $10,000 out of my pocket because I didn't want any loans. So yeah, that just goes to show, how supportive my parents were. And yeah, I think, in the long run, they have seen that it was totally worth it, my change.
Yeah. Did you use your negotiation skills that I'm familiar with on your parents by chance?
I was still learning back then, but I said, you know what, I'm going to make it happen. I got a piece of paper, I ran the numbers and I'm like, it's costing me this. And yeah, no, they kind of laughed, but they're like, okay, well, we trust you that you know what you're doing and just go for it and succeed.
Man, I love parents when they're very supportive. And you know what's crazy? The reality too is my parents are both Filipino, and when they came to the United States, they already had a vision for what they wanted me to be, right? Like, and so I don't know if it was the same in your household. And if it was, I could only imagine going up to your parents and saying, hey, this MBA thing, I don't think it's what I want to do. That might have been not just devastating news for them, but a lot of pressure on you, because if your parents were like, no, you need your education to get a good job, to get that stable paycheck, and by you disrupting that, I don't know, man. I say this maybe because it's kind of a personal thing, but I remember my parents would say something like, the family needs you to do this. It's almost like you have generations on your back. And so when your mom and dad were able to support you in your decision, I think that's a beautiful thing. So kudos to your parents for doing that. Since that decision, since pivoting from your MBA over to real estate, how has that benefited you and your mom and dad?
Well, everything that I had told them that I wanted to accomplish by transitioning into this career, I was able to accomplish. One of the biggest things that I wanted to do early on was retire my mom so that she wouldn't have to continue working. So both of my parents, they worked, jobs, making clothes in factories, getting paid, I don't know, I want to say like $10, $7 an hour. So I don't come from money. I don't come from wealth. None of my family, my parents were not like entrepreneurs. So I had always seen growing up how hard my parents would work just to be able to provide for me so that I wouldn't have to worry about not having anything. So I wanted to make sure that, I wanted to retire my mom. And I'm saying my mom because at that time when I got into real estate, my dad was kind of sick, so he had to stop working. So he was already not working. So it was essentially just me and my savings and my mom working for the three of us. And yeah, within the first year, I was able to accomplish that goal so that she could stop working. So she was able to retire. We were just talking about it this morning. I think today is 10 years that mom retired. Yeah. So she stopped working.
Oh, wow. And you did that all in the first year of real estate?
Yeah, within my first year.
That's amazing. No, that's really amazing. And I don't want to say that education's not important, because again, it depends on the individual, and if you have a passion for a certain thing that requires education, have at it. But in this particular scenario, do you think you would have been able to do that if you had stayed with the MBA program?
Probably not. I think I would be in a lot of debt, or I would try to be working my way up, and I might still be miserable working somewhere that I'm not happy. One of the last places that I was working at as well was it was a corporate job. This was right when I got into the MBA program. It was a corporate job in a cubicle, and I'm telling you, I felt like miserable in that little office cubicle. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. I thought that was a dream. If you have a cubicle office job, like, you've made it. Until I got there and I'm like, this is not for me.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side, you know? And man, that I love that. Thanks for sharing kind of a little bit of your history, where you come from, your relationship with mom and dad, and how they were supportive of your decision to go from, this formal approach to a not so formal, for some of our parents' perspective. Sounds like it worked out. You got to retire your mom in a year. It sounds like you got to spend more time with your parents as well during that transition. Let's go back into the real estate. So now that we know a little bit about you, and again, you're how well you excel in working the expired and FSBO leads, what are some important things you can share with our audience members when it comes to approaching expired and FSBO leads that one wouldn't normally do for a regular lead? Like, what is it about? Any gems you can share? I don't know if you want to share your secret recipe. You don't have to share it all, but what are some cool things or insights that you can provide when
Yeah.
it comes to dealing with expired and FSBOs?
Well, I think, the approach from the start is just asking a lot of open-ended questions. Like I mentioned earlier, I think many times, especially if you're trying to get a deal, you're coming from a sense of almost like desperation. And you need to remove that, because when you're desperate, you're not going to pay attention to what that other person is saying. So it's coming from an approach of, you know what, I'm a problem solver. Let's talk to this person. Let's find out what happened and let's see if we can actually help them. So asking the open-ended questions. Hey, Burton, your home came off the market. What happened? I didn't ask you if you're going to go back on the market for sale or what you're going to do. I said, what happened? Typically, when I ask what happened, that's when they'll start venting. Oh, the last agent said they were going to sell the house and now I can't move and this and that and the other. And I always have a pen and paper in front of me. I'm pretty old school and I'm writing down what they tell me, because I have noticed that the more frustrated someone is over the phone, it's probably because they were very motivated to sell and now they're really upset because they're getting phone calls and now they have to try to figure out what they want to do next. So asking the open-ended questions, figuring out the motivation, like why were you trying to sell? Where were you moving to next? So how have your plans changed now that the home came off the market unsold? So again, open-ended questions are game changers. You don't want to ask yes or no because it makes it easy for people to just say yes, no. And I like to say, sometimes you'll come across people and it's almost like you're talking to a tree and you're like, can I get a little bit more emotion? Like, what's going on here?
Again, you're dropping a lot of really cool perspectives, because as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm starting to realize you have this like natural ability of just looking at things half glass full, whereas most people would probably look at it half glass empty. For example, you talked about like calling someone on an expired or FSBO list. Expired listing probably is more of this scenario. You call, they're just not in the best mood. They're upset. They're angry. Most people, Loida, would look at that scenario and be like, this isn't a lead. This person's pissed off. They probably don't want to talk today. But you take it as an opportunity, not only as an opportunity, but you smell a lead. You're like, hold on here. This person's upset because they wanted to sell. They weren't able to. Let's figure out why. And let's see if we can be the solution to getting them what they need. I think that alone, again, just reframing just situations and how you approach them or how you think about them, that to me, I'll say is my biggest takeaway so far in this conversation. And I'm starting to think about it now. I'm like, how many times throughout the day am I looking at things half glass full, and maybe missing out on an opportunity because I'm approaching it that way? So I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to just highlight that, because you've shared quite a few really good things along this conversation. So great. How about this? I have a question I wanted to ask you in regards to, what's that? I just totally lost my place here. Okay, so when it comes to like the FSBOs and expired listings, I think you kind of answered it earlier. You kind of went after these leads because of this like competitive nature around it. It sounds like, hey, a lot of people are shying away from these type of leads. Therefore, I'm going to go after that. What was something that you picked up on your own or from somebody else that you've adapted into your business?
So when I started going after the expires and the for sale by owners, it was just that kind of like the challenge. And like I said, also, I knew that listings was the name of the game. When you have a listing, buyers come to you. Buyers agents bring their buyers, versus if I'm working with a buyer, I'm pretty much an employee to them and their schedule, right? So I remember, being told, expires and FSBOs, they're not easy, but they're going to make you money and you get to control your business and your time. So, getting over the rejection, learning objection handling. And I think the biggest thing that I learned and took from people, my mentors, was learning how to not take things personally, because a lot of emotion can be very involved. If I have someone yelling at me or cussing me out or frustrated, if you don't know how to control your emotions, you're going to give into that, emotion and what you're hearing, and that's going to stop you from continuing to prospect. So for me, it was learning and adapting to this new form and saying, you know what, however it is that they respond to me, I can only control how I respond. So it comes in one ear, out the other. They don't know that I'm calling them. I have no idea what they're going through, so I can't take it personal. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I tell people all the time, especially as you're newer to calling whoever it is, just being able to control your emotions and know that you just keep on doing what you have to do. Things are going to work out. That's probably like the biggest piece that was for me.
I love that. About calling and objection handling, seeing you after so many years of doing what you do, and that recent thing that we did a few weeks back, you are such an assassin on the phone. You are really good at objective handling and taking certain questions and finding an angle out of that answer that the homeowner gave, asking open-ended question. How did you get to where you're at today? Like, is this natural for you? Is this like a natural ability that you have? Or like, how are you refining your skill set to be who you are today? Like, what is it that you do?
I wish I could say that it came naturally, but no. Anyone listening to this, you could go back to my very first YouTube videos and you can see how horrible I was making phone calls. In fact, I posted my very first FSBO phone call on YouTube. And even looking back, I'm like, man, who is that girl? Completely the opposite of who I am now. But I think, me being an assassin, and I appreciate that compliment, because it's a lot of hard work, dedication, a lot of role playing, different scenarios. Something that I teach and I tell every agent is you need to have at least 4 to 5 different objection handlers for every one objection that you hear. Because if you know how to maneuver 5 different ways for that same objection, then you're going to be flawless over the phone. So for me, it was constant role playing every single day for about an hour or two, role playing with agents and people from different parts of the country, different personalities. I remember role playing with some agents out in New York. And if you get East Coast people, they're very different from West Coast. You get the direct, like the Italian accents, and you're like, okay. So for me, it was, I'm learning how to handle objections, but I'm also learning how to adapt to different personalities, different speeds for how people talk, different tonalities. And I think a combination of all of that and constantly working on my communication is how I've been able to get to the point where I could pick up the phone and handle any objection that I hear, because I have a very good idea of how to navigate it and where to take the conversation.
Yeah. Wow. I will say this, just hearing that, it sounds like you're all the way in when it comes to real estate. You're not like half foot in, half foot out. Like you are in. And what I mean by that, even just the fact that you said, hey, East Coast sellers do not have the same mindset as West Coast sellers. Just hearing that lets me know that you experienced it, and then you learned from that experience, and then you created a strategy that revolves around that experience, so that next time that experience comes to play, I have a solution for that. Would you agree? Are you like 100%? Like, would you say you eat, sleep, breathe real estate, Loida?
Yes. And, it's got to the point that when I was learning, what to say and the listing presentation and all of that, I was dreaming that I was at listing appointments, handling objections. That's how much I was like fully into this. So if you're not dreaming about real estate, you're not going hard enough. Because once you are, you're going to be like in bed and you wake up in the morning, you're like, I thought I went on a listing appointment and I got the listing. And that's how it was. That's how pretty much it became for me.
I love that. And I agree. I mean, I think that goes for everything in life. The more passionate you are about something, the more you're going to dive into it, the more you'll learn about that. And then the more you can share that passion with others. And potentially that's where profit can come around. Besides the financial stuff, because we all know real estate, there's lots of money involved, financial freedom. What else about real estate that you love? Is there, other than the ability to potentially, in this case, retire your mom early, is there other things in real estate that you just love about it?
I think there's a few things that come to mind. First of all, even with the expires and for sale by owners, helping homeowners that were trying to do something and either didn't know what they were doing or had a bad experience, and I'm able to come in and kind of like save the day. That is very fulfilling. At the same time, something completely unrelated is, being able to spend time with my family. Family is very important for me. And back in 2019, my dad fell very ill and unfortunately ended up passing away. But because I had built my business to how I did, I was able to spend a lot of time with him that if I would have had a regular job, I probably would have been fired because I would have been missing so much work. So that was another big thing. And then something else that I love to do that real estate has given me the opportunity is to be able to give back, in the sense that I help a lot with building churches in El Salvador, which is where my family is. Faith is also very big for me. So just those three things would be like the things that come to mind of how real estate has been able to impact me and my family and my life, aside from just, selling homes and commissions.
Okay, that is so cool. And first off, condolences to your father. But I love that real estate gave you the opportunity to free the freedom of time so that you can be there for him in his last few moments. And you're absolutely right. Corporate America would have probably canned you if you would have used up all your sick time and all that bereavement time, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're more of an expense to them than a benefit to them. So pretty crazy. And then the church building in El Salvador, that is so awesome. And it actually puts a huge smile on my face. And I'll say this because when I first found out about you, Loida, you were going off the name or by the name of Wonder Woman in real estate. And if I could just be honest with you, I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it makes sense. If you look at Wonder Woman on Google and you put it side by side with Loida, they look just like one and the same. And I think you even dressed up as Wonder Woman in one of your posts during Halloween. Yeah. And I was like, yes, the look is uncanny. But I'm smiling right now because the whole church thing in El Salvador, I'm over here thinking you're Wonder Woman in real estate because you look like Wonder Woman in real estate. But no, you are Wonder Woman in real estate because you're out there saving lives and helping lives. That's crazy. What is it like? What is it? Where do you get that philanthropy part of you? Have you always wanted to give back? Did it come later in your life, or just where does that come from?
Yeah, I think it was kind of how I was raised. I have always been raised going to church and giving back. And I believe that I have just been so blessed. God has given me all of my abilities to be able to teach and train agents and help them that way. And at the end of the day, if I'm able to also give back in a third world country, where people don't have a place to go and worship, or the biggest thing for me was getting the calls from my uncle saying, hey, we have this congregation here. They're building a church up in the mountains. There's no electricity or water. They just have a few couple bricks and they don't even have a roof or anything. And I step in and I say, okay, let's finish this so that they actually have something good. And just seeing the progress and what I'm able to do there, kids that don't even have shoes and being able to provide them shoes. And I've gotten a couple of times where when I'm there, we take them donuts and like chicken, and they're just amazed at everything. That's what fulfills me. Because, yeah, you see real estate, the shows, and it's glamorous, but for me, it's more, what can I give back so that I'm fulfilled with the gifts that I've been given, so that other people see that, okay, Loida is just not, this big real estate lady, but she is humble down here, getting dirty, helping us, become better people too.
I love that. And I want to just say this. Every decision that we all make has a long-term impact. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because that wouldn't have happened. The church in El Salvador, your uncle reaching out to you, asking for help. If at one point along the way, Loida just gave up, just, this isn't for me, this is too tough, I don't think I can face this challenge. Do you recall a very specific moment in your real estate journey where that could have happened? Do you recall that moment where this could be it for me in real estate? What happened,
Yeah.
and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I remember it happened very early on. I think it was about 6 or 7 months in, that I felt like I was putting in all this work, doing what I was supposed to, making the phone calls, talking to people, generating leads like from 8 to 5 every single day. And I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't really setting appointments. Every person that I was talking
Mm.
to was very negative. And it was getting to a point that I started telling myself, you know what, maybe this is not for me, or maybe I'm not good enough. And the biggest shift in my mind was when I talked to my mentors and I told them, what I was going through. And they said, well, you know what? Let's look at your progress and what you have accomplished in the
Mm.
last 6 months. You now know how to differentiate whether someone is a lead or a contact. You know how to pre-qualify. So instead of looking at things that, oh, I'm not getting anything, let's look at the positive of how far you've come. And I wasn't looking at things that way. And I think a lot of people fall into that same, trap where you focus on the negative instead of seeing how much you have improved. And once I made that switch and I started to see things that way, I started to attract better type of leads, and it became almost like a snowball where I started to set appointments, and those appointments would refer me someone else, and then it was just like business kept coming in. But it was at a point that I did want to give up because I just was not sure if this was for me.
I appreciate you answering that question, because I think a lot of us will eventually come to that point where something challenging will be presented in front of us, and it could be that moment where we decide to just completely go in a different direction. But I wanted to highlight that and ask you if there was that moment that you experienced, because if you had selected the other alternative, that church in El Salvador wouldn't even be around today. And those kids and the community,
Yeah.
all of that, all of those people would have been impacted. So just kind of wanted to share that one decision, that one moment, and you achieving that, and obviously other things along the way,
Mhm.
ended up having this really, really positive impact to the world. So kudos to you for doing that. And thanks for sharing that. I know we have a few minutes. I don't want to take too much of your time here, but the last thing I want to talk about is what has been your favorite deal? Because when it comes to FSBOs, when it comes to expireds, you're dealing with a lot. You're dealing with someone who tried to sell it, the agent that was representing them before didn't do it, or maybe a homeowner who's trying to do it themselves, who's just really stubborn, doesn't want to work with an agent. Like, what's your favorite deal? Why, and how did it all break down?
My favorite deal would probably be an expired that I cold called. It was during that 6 month time frame that I wanted to give up. That I was telling you at that point, I knew how to differentiate if someone was like an actual lead versus someone that was going to waste time. But I remember
Right.
it was about 4 o'clock. I have always done this full time, and my goal was always to have at least 30 conversations. So talk to 30 people every single day. And I remember I was at call number 29. Everyone before that had been really upset and would hang up on me. And it was about 4 o'clock. And I was like, you know what? Like, I really just want to call it a day. I did 29. I didn't get 30, but like I did 29. But I said, no, I told myself 30 is a minimum. So let's keep going. So yeah, that next phone call, it was a gentleman. He's an older man. And he said, you know what? All you realtors, you're all vultures and all you want is commissions and this and that. And I'm not going to really. And I remember seeing in the details that his property had been on the market for over 200 days and it had been relisted twice. So usually
Oh,
when I
wow.
see those details, I say, it tells me, okay, this person really wants to sell, so something's going on. So I remember bringing that up. I said, Jim, I see you've been trying to sell the home. Like, what's been going on? And that's when he started to vent and open up. Oh, well, the last agent told me that they could sell my house for 1.5 million and they didn't do the job. And he just starts going off. And then he says, and I really am tired of going up and down the stairs. The house is just way too big for me. So for me, that was like the ding, ding, ding. I was like, this man needs to sell.
Active listener. I love it.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, this is an older man. He's already telling me that he's struggling to go up and down the stairs. So he needs to move. It was a house that's over 3,000 square feet. It was just him and his dog. And I said, well, Jim, at the end of the day, like, what is that number that you're looking to get in your pocket? And he was so fixed on 1.5 million for the price, but what he really wanted to net, I think, was like 650,000 or something like that. And I said, you know what? Let me run the numbers. It sounds like, you being there might be a little bit dangerous. I would hate for you to fall or something happens. So let's set a time to get together and see what game plan we can come up for you. And after having this conversation of him going off on me for the first 5 minutes, he ended up setting an appointment. We ended up meeting and ended up getting the listing. So the property didn't even have to be listed for 1.5. Ended up listing for like 975, which was the market value. He still netted what he wanted in his pocket, ended up having to also buy another property, and he was just ecstatic. And it was me listening, and he was fixed on the 1.5, even though that was irrelevant, because he was able to get what he wanted in his pocket. So I think that's probably one of my favorite transactions, I guess, that comes to mind. And I even remember he had his little dog. I think the dog's name was Trixie. We did an open house and that dog ran out, and it was in a community. And I'm over in my dress, like running across the streets trying to get this dog.
Trixie,
It was kind
stop.
of like a circus, but yeah, that was probably
It worked
deal.
out. I love that. I really love that. And it goes to show, being an active listener and being human first, and then worrying about that transaction is very, very important. Now, I know you don't know the previous agent that tried, or maybe you do, but what do you think differentiated yourself from like the previous agents? Well, agents, because you said he tried to do it twice, right? Okay. What do you think was your biggest differentiator?
Well, from the data that I saw and what the property had been listed for, they had listed the property based on what the seller wanted. And that's a big mistake. Because it kind of goes back to that seller, that example that I said, if someone wants $1 million, if I list it for $1 million, even though I know it's not worth that, it's not going to sell. So that's why when I kept seeing that the property was listed overpriced, I don't know the agents, but my immediate first thought is, okay, they were listing to what the seller wanted, because it's the exact price that the seller wanted. That's why, as I was talking to the seller, I focus more on his net. Like, what are you trying to walk with at the end of the sale? Because then that number that I listed for is irrelevant, because if he tells me I need to walk away with X amount, then now it's almost like we can reverse engineer and see, okay, are we off? Are we like within the same, planet of price? And that's how we were able to have that conversation, where now I turn the focus, instead of let's focus on the 1.5, is this is what you're going to walk away with, which is exactly what you wanted. So what we price it at is irrelevant to 1.5 if it's priced right. So that's kind of my approach when it came to that.
And that's a very valid approach, because it's almost like the first two were just like, just sign the contract, stop yelling, let's cross our fingers, it sells for 1.5, where you were really like, no, let's get to the bottom of this. Like, what is it that you need? Because if that's what you need, then this is what we can do. We can work in these ranges and really get that sell, or it could sit another 200 days. And if the market goes down, well, then 1.5 is completely out the door at that point. So amazing. And thanks for sharing that deal. Because I always feel like there's that one deal that just sticks with us till the end of time. And it looks like Jim and Trixie will be that one for you. So I know we're wrapping up to the end of the show here. You have just given us a lot of really valuable information. And again, for me, I'm gonna walk away from this particular episode just, am I looking at things half glass full or half glass empty? That's kind of one of the biggest takeaways I'm going to get from you. But you still have a lot to give. You still have a lot to teach. How can people get a hold of you? Do you have socials? Do you have a website? What's the best way for our audience members to reach out?
Yeah, so I am on YouTube. I'm always posting content on there. You could just search my name, Loida Velasquez. And then also on Instagram, at Loida Velas. Usually everything is on there. Those are the best two places that you can reach out.
I love it. And then the last thing I'd like to ask from you, two things. One, for those that are just getting started in real estate, what's the best advice you would give to them?
The best advice, if you are getting started in real estate, is to have a strict schedule that you can actually stick to. It might be something as small as being consistent 2 hours, depending on what your life looks like. But once you are able to have a schedule that you can dedicate and be disciplined to, it's going to help you stay consistent and achieve whatever goals you're looking to achieve.
Second, for the real estate professionals right now, real estate agents, realtors right now who have avoided FSBOs and expired listings, what advice would you give them into why they should consider it this time around?
Yes, if you want to control your time and have a guaranteed paycheck, expired and for sale by owners are the lowest hanging fruit of people that want to do something. And you might think it's scary and intimidating, but trust me, there will be those that you call and they're going to say, you know what? I went for sale by owner because I didn't know an agent and I'm desperate to sell. And I have gotten those. So there are homeowners out there that need your help. And if it's not you calling or setting those appointments, someone else is, and they're getting the paychecks anyway. So why miss out on those opportunities?
I love that. Stop looking at those leads as half glass empty, ladies and gentlemen. Look at them half glass full. And the final thing I'd like to ask from you, because you shared this with us earlier, but for that person who's maybe listening to this episode who's not in real estate yet, maybe they're going through something really tough right now, what would be your reasoning or your response to why they should consider real estate as maybe a tool to help them with what they're going through?
Real estate can definitely be life-changing if you stick to it, if you learn from the right people. Like I was told and I've shared, it's not going to be easy or glamorous, but the best thing is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you can just replicate what other people have done. The best part for anyone that's watching this and is watching me is that you can go back 11 years to my YouTube channel and you can see the complete transformation of Loida when she was brand new and just licensed to where I am now. And I think that should be enough motivation for anyone to be like, okay, Loida was really bad back then and she's good now, so I have a shot. So hopefully that motivates you. But listen, at the end of the day, you have to give yourself that opportunity to be able to do this and succeed, because it might change you and your life and your family's life.
I love it. Well, Loida, thank you so much for spending this time with us here at PropStream Pros. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your past, a little bit about what you're doing, the advice that you gave. And again, for me, you really kind of, you're having me rethink how I'm going to be viewing things going forward. And again, I kept saying it throughout the episode, but I'm going to be asking myself going forward now, half glass full, half glass empty. Which one is it, Burton? But thank you so much for being here today. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching another episode of PropStream Pros. My name is Burton. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the PropStream Pros Podcast. Subscribe for weekly insights and real strategies to help you close more deals. See you next time.